chase after Case Keenum on a pass.
Hey guys, just getting stuff set up here, so bear with me. If you're watching on any of our platforms, just getting stuff still set up here. So hopefully this enormous amount of light coming directly into the screen isn't too distracting for y'all. I don't really know what to do about it. There's too much of it. Also, apparently my screen got really small for no reason. That was weird. Is that right? Let's see here. Oh. OBS is being a dick. Sorry about this, guys. We'll get it figured out eventually. I will eventually get it figured out. It's Denver behind me. If you haven't noticed, not Dallas, Denver. Because I'm in Denver. Let's see if I can't fix this. Filters. God, everything is so freaking bright. It's just killing me, man. Killing me. No, see, I disappear. Coming back a little bit there. How's that look, guys? I think that might be as good as we can get for today. So, no, I got to be really close if we're going to do it that way. Gosh, this is just not working. You guys just want me to just do it in a just green screen like normal? Gosh, no. The light is causing me a lot of problems right now. Just like tremendous, because my skin looks green. That's the problem here. All right. Well, that's going to have to do it. All right. So many Dallas Cowboys. So many. All right, everybody, we are live here on Showtime. Ari Temkin had a baby, so he is not here on a Monday. Obviously, the Dallas Cowboys had a huge, huge win over the New Orleans Saints on Thursday. And, yeah, ending the New Orleans Saints' undefeated season was spectacular. I think everybody was really, really excited about that. So we are going to discuss what that means. I think that there are a lot of really good things to take away from that, so we'll get into that here in just a moment. Robert Kiev Ancheta. I hope I'm saying that right, Robert. What up, what up? Guys, by all means, please share this with your friends, and I'm not as familiar with all of the pages that this goes to as Ari Temkin is, so please, by all means, if you want to comment if you want to comment here on the show, if you want your comments read on the air, by all means, please comment on the Phantom page so that I can read your comments on the air. For those of you just joining us, Eric joining us. What's up, Eric? Guys, if you're just now joining us, please share this with your friends and know that Ari is fine. I have not captured him. He is not. He's not been detained. He had a child, second child. From all intents and purposes, sounds like he feels pretty good about it. Feels pretty good about the baby. Has all of its fingers and toes. Normal number of eyes and nipples. So he's good to go. He is good to go. Roderick says, "Who dat?" Robert says, "No accents, but close enough." Thank you very much, Robert. I'm going to do my best to try to pronounce everybody's names properly. That is not always easy on Facebook because sometimes people have some crazy names, some names I'm not familiar with. I am very much white American, so my accent is nothing. My accent is the boring voice of just a white guy. So please, by all means, I apologize if I get your name incorrect as we're going on throughout the show. The Cowboys are in their rightful place in the NFC East, and for people who have been longtime Cowboys fans know what I talk about when I talk about the NFC East. It's kind of it has its own unique kind of I don't really know how to say it. It's the culture of the NFC East is very vitriolic. It's very violent. Teams when they play one another in the NFC East, there is no love. No one likes anybody else in the NFC East. If you had to tell Dallas Cowboys fans who their number one rival was, you'd get 3 different answers. Because some people think it's the Eagles. When the Eagles are good, you think it's the Eagles. When you think it's when the Giants are good, you think it's the Giants. And then when the rest of the time, it's the Redskins. The Redskins haven't been good since like 1992, so it's hard to really say it's the Redskins ever. But that's kind of like the traditional rival. And what they did to the Redskins on Thanksgiving Day was really impressive. I know that it was only Colt McCoy, good old Colt. But Colt did a good job, I thought. Colt was okay. He did an okay job against that pretty substantial Cowboys defense. He did okay. I don't think that was like a gimme win. But I will say this. You take what you can get in the NFC East because it doesn't really matter who is good at what time or who gets hurt at what time because there's always going to be somebody's always going to be up and somebody's always going to be down. All 4 of the teams in the division all have those moments. So just because Alex Smith wasn't playing in the game against the Redskins, that was still a quality win. And I'm saying all this because we've gotten into the last quarter of the season now. And in the last quarter of the season, that's when the teams that you don't think are very good end up surprising you because you realize that the league is not about what you thought it was about. And right now, everybody is having kind of the same reaction to all these good teams losing, which is, oh no, that's going to happen. It's still those are the best teams, and yet we've seen the Steelers 2 weeks in a row lose to the Chargers and the Broncos. We've seen teams that were just at 3-5. The Dallas Cowboys looked like they were in total disarray. They were just like they couldn't pass the ball at all. The only thing they had good going for them was Zeke Elliott, and even then they didn't run the ball enough. Running the ball more with Zeke Elliott over the last couple of weeks has been, I think, the best improvement of anything, even though I want to give due credit to Amari Cooper, because Amari Cooper, I criticized that trade at the time. I think a lot of people criticized that trade at the time because you're giving up a first-round pick for a guy who is, he's coming on the last year of his rookie contract, so he's going to be a free agent in the offseason. And also he had a lot of catching problems in Oakland. So everybody was really concerned that all of those problems were going to follow him to Dallas, and it was going to be a bad investment. Turns out his catching inability was really just specific to the Raiders. The Raiders kind of ruined Amari Cooper, especially our perception of Amari Cooper. We blamed him for a lot of things. He did have some bad drops, don't get me wrong. And I still think that may end up causing some issues for him in Dallas as well. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that seeing Amari Cooper come in on Thanksgiving Day and put up 190-plus yards, 2 touchdowns, just a monster of a day, and then follow that up with another really good game against the Saints, a game in which the Saints didn't really seem to have an answer for the Dallas Cowboys defense. All of those things coming to fruition all in one game have really kind of, they flipped on the head the notion that we know what the league is now. And at the beginning of the season, everybody was talking about the Chiefs offense and the Saints offense and the Rams offense and these kind of new age ways of thinking about offense and how the game is now reflecting more of what we see in college. And look, as it took longer than I thought it was going to take. But I thought specifically with the Chiefs offense, because if you watch the Chiefs offense, this is not to say that Patrick Mahomes isn't any good, because clearly he's really good and he's going to be really good moving forward. But he's not this good. The statistical explosion that happened with the Chiefs offense that's not real. Those numbers aren't reflective of how good that team really is. And so what I think happened on Thursday night, and what I think is going to help the Cowboys in the playoffs is this. They took the New Orleans Saints, who have an elite-level quarterback, some of the best offensive numbers you've ever seen in the league, in a year in which defense has really kind of become secondhand. Like, defensive, I would not want to be a defensive player in football anymore. I wouldn't want to be that guy. I would not want to have to be the corner who's not allowed to touch the receiver, who's not allowed to jam guys at the line, who's not allowed to tackle all the time, to tackle the way you want to tackle, really make guys pay for making a good play. Like, that's the thing that separated the NFL from college football for decades, was the fact that in college football, you will occasionally have a guy hit another player just square in the shoulders and just knock him off his block and, really do some damage. That happens 7 or 8 times a game, every game in the NFL. So it's like, you make a good play, good on you. You're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it with your flesh. And in the first 10 weeks of the season, really, we didn't see that in the NFL. We saw no real great defensive play like that. And so finally, I think what the Cowboys showed is that you can be effective defensively with the right game plan against those teams. That matters. That's really, really important. That's really, really important because not only are they in the NFC, which is much tougher than the AFC right now, but they've shown that there is an antidote to the all offense all the time. You can't do anything against this quarterback because you're not allowed to do anything against this quarterback mode of thinking. That's important. That really matters. And, everybody's kind of sleeping on a couple of these teams. Now, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here, guys. I'm not saying that the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. But there's a couple of teams right now that people are sleeping on because of all these offensive, this offensive craziness that we've seen that you shouldn't be. Those teams are as follows. And one of them is going to really surprise you. The Dallas Cowboys. I think people are sleeping on the Cowboys. I did not think they would be that good this year. Now, I didn't think they'd also have Amari Cooper on their team this year, so that changed things in a big way. So Amari Cooper's really helped their offense, given themselves a little bit of flexibility in terms of what they can do. That's opened things up for Ezekiel Elliott, which is really good because I think you can make an argument, as you can with several running backs right now. He's the best in the league. That kind of changes from week to week, but he's in that conversation. The other thing that has happened, so I think the Cowboys defensively, with Leighton Vander Esch coming in for Sean Lee, I thought that was a huge revelation for them as well. So you could make you could make the argument that the Cowboys have the best middle linebacker, inside linebacker group in the NFL. And I think defensively they've been able to do the right things at the right times, situationally, matchup-wise, to really show that you can play effective defense against these great offenses. So that's why I think people are sleeping on the Cowboys. The other two teams that I think people are sleeping on for some similar reasons. Another two AFC teams, the Denver Broncos. And I say the Denver Broncos because they haven't turned the ball over in like 4 games, and they've shown that if you can play ball control, which to the Cowboys' credit, they can play ball control too. So if you can play ball control, old world offense, and if you've got a good enough defense that either A, creates turnovers, or B, limits third down conversion percentage, if you can do those two things, you are as formidable as any team in the league come playoff time. So, I think that, that team, the Dallas Cowboys, the Denver Broncos, the Houston Texans, which nobody really knows what to make of the Houston Texans right now, but the Texans have done a lot of interesting stuff lately. Obviously they're 9-3. They're the hottest team in the league. They've got some really good offensive weapons. So, I think that don't sleep on the Texans, because the Texans have those defensive weapons, kind of like the Rams do, where you're like, okay, well, Whitney Merciless and J.J. Watt and all those guys are really, really good. You do not want to get on the wrong side of that defense at the wrong time. You let them get a lead, they're just going to tee off on you. And then, and I hate to say this, the New England Patriots, because the Patriots have not allowed a 300-yard passer in 9 games. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher in 9 games. And if you're a defense in today's NFL and you're trying to come up with a game plan for how to win in the postseason, all you've basically got to do is hold your own against these teams that have pretty decent defenses, and then against those teams with offensive juggernaut numbers, just limit them. If you can formulate a plan in the playoffs to do that, you're gonna have a lot of success come postseason time. Let's see, Leo Bowden, what's up with Connor? I don't know. Eric says, TJ, what's up, brother? Old school football, it's a war. It is, man. It is. Eagles. So you guys say you guys hate the Eagles. Okay, so it's all Eagles. I hate the Eagles because they're the Super Bowl champs. I get that. It kind of depends, right? It depends on who's good at the time. In terms of who Dallas's true rival in the NFC East is, I would say right now it's kind of hard to tell. But the Redskins are always the default when the other two teams aren't any good. Keith, man, Dak had a great first half, but his second half performance was not good. I think that Keith, you're correct on a couple of fronts about that. There's no doubt Dak Prescott is kind of hot and cold. If he's running the ball effectively, especially in the red zone, because he's had so many red zone rushing touchdowns lately, as long as he can move the ball effectively, and he doesn't have to do too much. I think that's the thing with Dak Prescott, is that he can have a half where he's not that good, and it doesn't really matter because he's not that important to the overall scheme of the offense. Without Zeke Elliott, the Cowboys are not a playoff team. With him, Dak Prescott can be good enough and get the ball into the hands of Amari Cooper and those guys to move the ball effectively. He doesn't have to be everything, and I think there for a little while they were kind of trying to force that on him, and I don't really understand why they did that. But go back to that Eagles game. You go back to the Eagles game and you start listening to like Chris Collinsworth talk about what the Cowboys are trying to do and figure out about Dak Prescott. Basically, they're saying, we don't know what Dak can do because we've never really asked him to do anything. And that year we were good, he didn't really have to do very much. So now let's see how good he is. So, because we haven't really known the answer to that question in quite some time. That's kind of true. If you look at the way the Cowboys have won and why they've succeeded, they've succeeded a lot when things were kind of easy on them, when Dak didn't have to do too much. And then you asked him to do a lot, and he sucked. He was really bad. They started off the season 3-5 because they were asking him to do too much. So, this is going to upset, I think, the Dak fans out there. But if you're a Cowboys fan, Amari Cooper was just like, Amari Cooper was a godsend. Amari Cooper was everything. because he gave them the ability to take the top off the defense. He gave them somebody who is a dynamic playmaker who can create those big plays for you, who you didn't have prior to that. So in Cole Beasley and guys like that. So you now have two big playmakers to allow Dak Prescott to kind of do some of the little limited but effective things he can do in the pocket as a rusher, especially in the red zone. So, if I had to envision the way a perfect Dallas Cowboys touchdown drive goes, it is ground and pound with Ezekiel Elliott, and then anytime you get into a third down, Amari Cooper comes up with a big catch. And then when you get into the red zone, Dak Prescott just runs around until and then finds his way into the end zone. That's kind of the way that the Cowboys move the ball on effective touchdown drives. Zeke Elliott is your meat and potatoes. Amari Cooper saves you when you get into a little bit of trouble. And then Dak Prescott finishes it off with a running touchdown. That's kind of the way that they've moved the ball and scored touchdowns this year. So if you can follow that formula with some relative consistency, I mean, the Cowboys are going to score between 25 and 35 points a game. And that's enough with that defense to beat most teams. There are a couple of teams that you'll have some problems with. If you had to play the Rams, you're going to have a problem with the Rams. You're going to have a problem with them because their running game is so effective, and also because their defense is good enough to take the ball away from you. That's the other thing, too, that we need to discuss. The Cowboys are like most teams, better when they don't turn the ball over. But if they turn the ball over, I think a turnover hurts the Cowboys more than it hurts other teams, if that makes sense. Let's take the Bears, for instance. If the Bears turn the ball over, it's not the end of the world because that offense is so dynamic that they can pick up a lot of yards with relative ease. That defense is so good that they create points on their own. So a turnover doesn't mean the same thing to the Bears that it does to the Cowboys. That's just kind of the game that you've played here with Jason Garrett for so long. Jason Garrett he's not good at taking those big risks. Sean McVay can do that in Los Angeles. Sean McVay can take all the risks in the world because he knows, I can make up for that because I can consistently pick up first downs. First down marker's not really that relevant to our offense. First down marker still means a lot to the Cowboys offense because it's an old world offense. It's a lot of play action. They're less into the RPOs, even though I think that their offense can be effective with the RPOs. I think that they really need a consistently sound rushing attack. Anytime they get into trouble, it's because they're not giving the ball to Ezekiel Elliott enough. I mean, if I had to diagnose the Cowboys in short, I would say, well, if they struggle when they don't give the ball to Ezekiel Elliott, and they're really good when he gets the ball a lot. And I think you've seen that him getting the ball a lot also allows Amari Cooper to be good. It allows Dak Prescott to be better. It allows, it allows everybody in that offense, Cole Beasley, everybody. It allows the whole team to play more effectively. And it also keeps their defense off the field so they're fresh when they come back in and they're playing against those really good teams like New Orleans. New Orleans did not have the ball that much in the first half. And I think that's another thing too. That kind of ball control style offense that's so archaic. I feel like we're talking about Georgia Tech here. It's. I'm not saying that it's an Amish offense. This offense, it does operate on electricity. It is not. It is not. It is not Georgia Tech or Army. They've got some bells and whistles on this thing, but it's not the new age. It's not spread. And I know some people were kind of curious about Cliff Kingsbury coming in for the Cowboys. You don't change anything. You can't bring somebody in this is not college football. Don't do that. Let's see here. Robert says Irvin is my all-time favorite Cowboy. So that cheering they did was probably what it did for me. Let's see. Neil says that Dallas defense is serious, man. It is, and I think that's the thing. G says, TJ has to talk Cowboys for an hour. I'm going to love this. Yeah, of course. Hey, G, I can talk about Cowboys. I can talk about Cowboys for 3 hours. I can talk about Cowboys for 6 hours and not really have a problem. Let's see. Chris says, hey, TJ, what's up, Chris? Wolf Hunter has been hunting. The defense can shut anyone down, even the Rams. Yes, I agree with that, Eric. I do agree their defense can shut down the Rams. I don't think they could do it for 4 quarters. I think that they could have a really good half against the Rams, but they're going to have to score some points to beat that team. They're going to have to score more than they're going to have to score more than 25 to beat that team. They're not going to limit the Rams to 10 and then win 17-10. We're not talking about the Redskins here. This is not the Detroit Lions. It's the Los Angeles Rams. Show some respect. Philip says, wrong. Our defense has played well all year long. Thursday was the same. I'm not saying that they haven't played well all year long. Cowboys defense has played very well. I think what happened is that you saw them against one of these elite level offenses, and they showed everybody, hey, look, all of this offensive explosion that happened around the league early on in the season is beatable. That you can do that. It's not overwhelming. You're not going to have to get into these shootouts with the Chiefs and the Rams and the Saints to win. You can win playing old school defensive football. You can win that way. It is still doable. And the last half of the season has proven that to be true, not only by the Cowboys, but also a number of other teams, including the Texans, the Patriots, the Broncos. You've seen some of those teams really struggled early on. All of those teams struggled early on. And now you're finally seeing them get later into the season when they've got some tape on these teams. They understand exactly what they're doing offensively. And they're like, okay, well, that's really impressive. You basically copied and pasted a college offense into the NFL, and given that the rules have changed as much as they have, you've had your fun. You've had 10 weeks of fun. Now it's time to get back to playing NFL football. And that's what I think the last month of the season, you're going to see the Chiefs really struggle. You're going to see the Rams struggle. You're going to see teams, I don't know what to make of Chicago, although I think sneakily Chicago is probably the best offense in the league schematically. Statistically, they've got their limitations, and statistically they don't measure up with those other teams. But like the Bears' offense is legit. Some of the stuff, they're competitive. Here's what's mind-boggling to me. You see Mike McCarthy, who just got fired up in Green Bay. He can't win with Aaron freaking Rodgers. And you've got the Bears over here winning and being competitive with Chase Daniel at quarterback. The difference between what Mike McCarthy was squandering in Green Bay and what Matt Nagy is doing in Chicago is just astonishing to me. But the thing about that is that scheme is beatable. That's what you're showing teams around the country. You're showing people in the NFL that the offense is fun. The offense is nice. It's interesting to see this evolve, but there is definitely another wave of defense coming here. And it just took the league a little while to figure out exactly what was going on here. But yeah, there's no question the Cowboys defense has been playing well all season. The Cowboys defense has not had an offense come into town or had to go play an offense that's that good. And then they did, and they showed everybody, look, defense is still pretty important in the league, even though everybody is very quick and hasty to anoint these offenses as captain commander of everything in the NFL. No. If you can get turnovers consistently and you can limit third down conversion percentage, you're good. You can create sacks, and the Dallas Cowboys defense has created some sacks. They're not they're not tops in the league. I think that the Steelers obviously created an enormous amount of sacks. The Patriots create a lot of sacks. They're obviously the Bears have done very well defensively. Some of those other defenses, that are supposed to be really good, like the Rams, have really struggled to create pressure on the quarterback. Oddly enough, I think that will probably change dramatically in the postseason. But to see what the Cowboys are doing right now with the rest of the league, everybody's obsessed with offense. And they're saying, no, we're going to play ball control style offense. We're going to run the ball effectively with Ezekiel Elliott. We're going to score the points that we score, but we're going to make sure that we're always in the game because our defense is on point. That's really important. It's taken us 12 weeks, 13, 14 weeks to get here to this point to where we can really say that with some level of authority. But I think the Cowboys are right at the front of that movement. That defense still matters. Let's see here. Philip says, the most we had the ball all season long. Yeah, it was really, really big. Eric asked, did I lose a bet to Ari? I did not lose a bet to Ari. Ari is with child, or his wife had a child. So now he's taking care of them. Let's see. G says he wants Seattle. Eric says Detroit exposed the Rams yesterday. Dallas can beat them. They can. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I think we're on the same page here. Wendy says I'd rather see the Eagles win over Washington. They both will have 6 losses. Go Cowboys Nation. Chris saying TJ talking Cowboys. What's happening? Filling in for Ari today and tomorrow as well. Eric, Washington needs to lose tonight. The rest of their schedule is easy. This may be the last loss they take. The Eagles still have to play some tough teams and us. Calvin says you wouldn't see Gallup progression with Cooper, in my opinion. That's true. I think that's a lot. That's very true, Calvin. And I'm glad you brought that up because Gallup. I think Gallup's a tremendous talent. We saw him here at Colorado State. Gallup is he's really, really good. And I think that you get more out of him the more Amari Cooper's involved in the offense. We've seen that as a similar thing with Juju Smith-Schuster in Pittsburgh with Antonio Brown. Brown gets so much attention because he's so good that Smith-Schuster is able to to show out a little bit more. He's actually, I think, over 1,000 yards already this season. So I think Gallup absolutely gets to shine, and he gets a little bit of room to grow and develop because Amari Cooper is there to take so much attention. Eric says, yep, because now he's drawing number 2 corner and can progress normally. Yep, Eric, good point. Wendy says, need to throw more on first down to open run up. I'm not so sure about that. I am comfortable with him running on first and second down and then throwing on third down. I'm totally fine with that. I know that sounds so old school. I sound like Woody Hayes, but I'm okay with running on first and second down every time. Let's see here. Rams allowed 50 points at home. To the Chiefs. Robert, my biggest problem with Dak Mobile is how much we plan on paying him. If he's going to be a $24+ million guy, nope. If he's 15 to 18, sure. Yeah, I think if you're paying him what the Broncos are paying Case Keenum, which is overpaying Case Keenum, but if you're paying him that, I think that's okay. Sure. Ernest Lugos, Dak is a powerful runner. I'd like to see run the ball a lot more. Yes, just keep running. Run, man. I am all for feed the beast. Give the last of the Ewoks the ball for the love of God. And I was shouting that at the top of my lungs at the beginning of the season because they didn't have Amari Cooper, and it was even more obvious that they needed to give Ezekiel Elliott the ball. You are a little concerned with wearing him out, but man, he has proven to be so durable. He takes good care of his body, and he falls the right. I remember, I think it was, who was it? I think it was Priest Holmes. I was talking with Priest Holmes, and he told me, he said, there's some running backs who last forever in the league because they just know how to fall right. Some running backs, you watch them early on in their careers, and their knees are hitting the ground, and they're falling, like you can see their legs bending the wrong way and things like that early on. And he's like, those guys never last in the league. You got to learn how to fall. You got to learn how to get tackled. And if you want to have a long career, you got to learn how to protect your body even though you're going to the ground. And I think Ezekiel Elliott has a kind of a natural tendency on doing that the right way, which is why I think he's probably more likely to be healthy moving forward than not. It's not just about carries. And I think a lot of people get into that mode of thinking of if you have over 230 carries in a season, you're going to wear out a lot faster than somebody who doesn't. And I guess in aggregate, that's true. But, that's not taking into consideration that, hey, there's sometimes I call them free touches. Jamal Charles in Kansas City was being run into the ground. He accounted for 36% of the Chiefs' offense back in 2013, 2014. And we would watch him in the booth and say, okay, well, he ran out of bounds on that play. That's a free carry. That's a free touch. That does not count against his wear and tear on his body. The more free touches you get, the better. And I think if you fall right, if you get out of bounds, Ezekiel Elliott does a good job of that. He's going to protect his body a lot longer than guys like Leonard Fournette, say, who are just bam, 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 just trying to like run through guys every single play. It's admirable. It looks impressive on a lot of those touchdown runs, and Leonard Fournette's a great player, but you are going to wear yourself out playing that way. Let's see. Ernest says, Dak is a powerful runner. I'd like to see run the ball a lot more. Yeah. Isias says, so what can you do about Dak to better him, or is that it about him? Make him better? It's a good question. I think you can make Dak Prescott better by helping him work on his footwork first and foremost. Because a lot of the power from those throws, if you don't have a natural arm strength, if you're not built like Joe Flacco doesn't. He can stand however he wants. His arm is a trebuchet. It's just like he's huge. So his arms are 9 feet long. He doesn't even have to work out. It's just like centrifugal force allows the ball to go farther, And Dak Prescott's not built like that. Most guys aren't. So he's going to have to generate power in his throws the same way Drew Brees does. Drew Brees is a tiny man. He's very small. He's very accurate. He's not known for arm strength. Really, none of the great quarterbacks are known for arm strength. He's going to have to get really good at pinpointing throws, making sure the nose of the football is not. So, like a lot of guys who have really good arm strength, Jeff George was notorious for this. Jeff George could throw the ball through a wall. Like his arm was so strong. But the nose of the football was always kind of pointed down. And if you've got a lot of arm strength, a lot of times you're holding onto the ball so tightly and you're throwing it so hard. The harder you throw the ball, the more likely the nose is to dip. So the key is timing, like the rotation timing. That was one of those things that Tim Tebow could never get. That's why nobody thought he would ever be a good quarterback in the NFL, is the timing of that. And then the release, like apex release. Most quarterback coaches talk about apex release a ton. And if you want to maximize Dak Prescott's accuracy, velocity, all those things, two things: apex release and footwork, because you generate most of your strength if you're a smaller body from your core and from like making sure you're stepping into the throw correctly. So it comes from your body and your legs just as much as it does from your arm. And so apex throw and then, footwork. Those are the two things that he's got to get better at. And that's not easy to do. I would say the best guy to show you, if you want to make Dak Prescott a better passer, just go watch Drew Brees and maybe go in the offseason, go work out with Drew Brees. Like, hey, Drew, I need some help. And, he would do that. I think that'd be pretty cool to see him go there, work out with Drew Brees and say, hey, I would like to learn from you. Please teach me, sensei. And I think that would really, really help. I think that would really help Dak Prescott. Let's see. Got to hand it to Garrett and Linehan for calling a good game against the Saints. Yeah, you do. And I'm not a fan of Jason Garrett. I will come out openly and say that. Not a Jason Garrett guy. But, hey, give credit where credit's due. That's the same thing that's happening here in Denver. I don't know what to think of Vance Joseph right now because they've won all these games in a row, and it looks like they're going to make the postseason. And I was pretty much like dead set on believing that Vance Joseph was a terrible coach. And I have been dead set on thinking Jason Garrett is a mannequin with a headset for like 5 years now. And he still has his job. They went 13-3 that one year. And so everything was looking up, and it was like, okay, well, Jason Garrett's kind of stay around for a little while. All right. But it looked like he was on a path to misery and, or on the path to being Mike McCarthy. That's really what it seemed like. It's like squandering talent, bad coaching. He's going to get fired in the middle of the season, even though Jerry Jones said he wouldn't do it. And now I don't really know what to think about Jason Garrett. What do you think about Jason Garrett? Is he good enough to go up against some of those elite level minds in the NFC? He did it against Sean Payton, But that's once, right? You can get anybody once. Can you do it 2, 3, 4 times? Can you do it consistently? That's hard to do. That's why Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick, because every year it doesn't matter whether it's Mike Tomlin or Andy Reid. It doesn't matter who it is, Rex Ryan. Doesn't matter. Peyton Manning, if you want to call him the coach instead of Gary Kubiak for the Broncos. It doesn't matter what mind he's going up against. He can pretty consistently beat anybody, regardless of how smart they are. And that's hard to do. You know, Andy Reid can do that in Kansas City because Andy Reid's been doing it for like 30 years in the league. We know Andy Reid's a good coach. We know it. It's like uncontested. He is a good coach. He has his problems. He has his limitations, especially in the postseason, but we know he's a good coach. How many years is this into Jason Garrett? 8? Are we 8 years into Jason Garrett? Do we know he's a good coach? I feel like you should know after 8 years if somebody's a good coach or not. And I don't know what to tell you. He's not Wade Phillips. And look, Wade Phillips, I think, gets a bad rap because Wade Phillips was better as a head coach than people want to give him credit for in Dallas. He was a better head coach than people want to give him credit for. I don't think he's the best head coach, but he's better than people thought he was, especially by comparison. And I have been way more fed up and frustrated with Jason Garrett over the last few years than I ever was with Wade Phillips. So I don't know where you guys stand on the Wade Phillips thing or Jason Garrett thing, but I still think we're kind of with our hands up in the air. I don't know what to do with this new information. I know the Cowboys are probably going to make the playoffs. I think they're a really good team. I think defensively, they're doing what few teams are doing in the league right now, and I think defense matters a lot more in the postseason than offense does. And so I like what the Cowboys look like at present. I don't know how to measure that versus all of the other 8 years of Jason Garrett we've witnessed and like reconcile those two things. I don't know how to do that. If you have any suggestions, by all means, please enlighten me. Edward Loganville is, where is Ari? Ari had a child, so he is not on the show today. Edward, Eric, he's at. Oh, okay, he's letting him know. Cousins, hands down, biggest waste of money. I hated seeing him leave Washington. He always gifted my boys with an INT or two. Yeah. As Eric is saying, LOL, yeah, he sure did. All three got major upgrades in their contracts this year. All three have had underperforming seasons. Garrett is not good enough to win in the postseason. Too conservative. Yeah, but I would also say that the conservativeness of Jason Garrett is one of the reasons why defensively they've emphasized defense. They've emphasized that side of the ball and why they're as good as they are, because they know they have to be good defensively because they are conservative on offense. They know they're going to settle for field goals a lot. They know that they're going to try to win a war of attrition because that's what the NFL has been forever. And as much as we want to see things change around the league, offensively, defensively, or otherwise, I think that we're going to see things come back to the middle here a little bit. We're going to see these big-time offenses like the Saints against the Cowboys came back to the mean. We saw the Rams are starting to do that. The Chiefs barely beat the Raiders, who are trying to lose. They barely beat. They were just onside kick at the end of the game. So we're talking about the league right now as though defense is dead. And I think the Cowboys are a perfect example of how it's not dead. Not only is it not dead, but I think it's still more important than offense is. Because that's the way it's been forever. Until this year, I think you can say that offense has made a lot of strides, but defense has always been more important. Always. And then this year, it seemed like you're reading articles on The Ringer about how this is the new age offense. Monday Night Football, Rams, Chiefs. This is the future of the NFL. And I thought that was presumptuous then. I think it's presumptuous now. And I think that the antidote to the offensive explosion around the league is what the Cowboys are doing. And as much as I like offense and I want to see the league continue to go in this direction to some extent, I still think the rules are so heavily in favor of offense because defense has always been better. Defense has always been more important, and defense has always won championships. I was trying to not say that all show. I finally broke down and said it. Defense wins championships. And I'd give the Cowboys defense as good of a shot as anybody else out there right now. Good of a shot. I don't favor them to win because I still think that the Rams defense is like, you're going to be astonished. You're going to be like, how did they suck all season long? And then now they're amazing in the postseason. And you're like, oh, that's because Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald know that working hard in the regular season isn't as important as working hard in the postseason. And that's when they really come to play. Kind of like the Colts did under Peyton Manning forever. They had terrible, just shitty defense for tons of regular seasons under Peyton Manning with the Colts. And then they get into the postseason, you're like, the Bob Sanders. Wow, Dwight Freeney had 11 sacks. That's amazing. You know, so like I think those things happen, you know, in cycles a little bit, but that's kind of what the Rams to a certain extent are kind of rope-a-doping. And when they get a key to lead back for the postseason, that's gonna cause a lot of problems for some teams. And also you have to remember, those players are still learning to play together a lot. So never underestimate how long that takes to figure out how well people work together. Let's see here. Eric says, we don't know what he really is as a coach because he's never been allowed to be a real head coach. Talking about Jason Garrett. With how the team is run, it doesn't matter who stands in front of the media really, because that's Garrett's main job. Yeah. Okay. Edwards, after 8 years, if you have to ask yourself if a guy is a good coach or not, then you have your answer, not a good coach. That's fair as well. Eric, defense does win chips. You're right. Peyton Manning and Eli Manning did it with crappy offenses and great defenses. They did. They really, really did. I mean, Eli Manning's a great example. That's one of those teams. Speaking of the NFC East, the New York Giants' 2 Super Bowls with Eli Manning both kind of happened the same way, right? They snuck into the postseason. They had a losing record midway through the year, and then they caught fire and totally blew the rest of the league away in the postseason because at that point their pass rushers were so good and so dialed in. Nobody could get a lead against them. Nobody could get a lead against the New York Giants, and they just kind of eked their way into the postseason, and then eked their way through the playoffs, but won every time because of defense. You don't have to have touchdown. It's not going to work, and I think to a certain extent, it kind of hurts those teams, especially young teams that do it. Young teams that put up those kinds of offensive numbers. See, this is why I think the Chiefs are frauds. I think the Chiefs are fraudulent in large part because they don't know what they don't know. Andy Reid knows a lot about the postseason and how to lose in the postseason, but he doesn't know. There's only so much of that experience that he can translate into knowledge that he can then convey to Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is going to get hit in the mouth a bunch, and you saw that against the Rams. Once he started getting popped a lot, like his accuracy went down. He started throwing picks. He started fumbling the ball a bunch. Like he gave the Rams 21 points in that game. 21 points. So it doesn't matter if you throw 7 touchdowns in a game. If you give up the win, you're a loser. It means that your strategy isn't any good. It means that your strategy is good for making people go, wow, oh, I love him on my fantasy team. It's shit when it comes to actually winning championships. You need a defense. You cannot. We have never seen a team without a defense win a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that you have to have the best defense, but winning without a defense, no defense at all, that's never happened. Name one team that's done that. All offense. All offense. No defense at all. Greatest show on turf. I mean, they had a defense. It wasn't the best defense, but it was a defense. They weren't, and that was back in the days of the NFL when you could knock the crap out of guys. So let's see. Eric says Eli did it twice that way. They sucked all season and came on strong in November and won 2 rings. Cowboys whooped them twice with a high-power offense. Then in the playoffs, we played them a third time when they brought their defense and stunned the world and punched us in the mouth. Man, and see, that's why, as much as people are critical of the coaches, with like Jason Garrett and Vance Joseph and guys like that, and critical of the lack of offense and the frustrations that those offenses face on a regular basis, man, just remember it's defense, defense, defense. It's all about the defense, man. And as much as this last 13, 14 weeks has been great for fantasy numbers and everybody's excited about the quarterbacks and they want to see more aggressive offenses, you're going to see that offensive aggression is going to come back to bite all these young and experienced offensive minds in the ass in the playoffs. That's how that works, man. That's how that works. By the way, guys, really enjoyed this. Maybe I should start a show. Start up the show again. Just talk about Cowboys. You guys like me talking about Cowboys? Everybody excited about this Cowboys talk here we're getting? We're going to be coming out with some videos later on in the week. I've got some really interesting projects I wanted to talk to you guys about really quickly here. Have you guys ever watched A Football Life? You know, they've got these, like Emmitt Smith, A Football Life, Michael Irving, A Football Life. They've had these documentary series. We're going to do something called A Football Existence. And we're going to pick a topic, Dallas Cowboys related, to discuss, or a player to discuss, like Leon Lett, A Football Existence. And then we'll just talk about how Leon Lett was a really good defensive player, but he had a problem getting the ball into the end zone. He would just fumble it for no reason, just right at the goal line. Get it knocked out of his hands. I think he had it happen twice in one game once. Or the 2009 draft, the Cowboys 2009 draft, A Football Existence. It happened very quickly. Everybody was out of the league in 2 years. We're going to talk about that. We're gonna have some fun with it. We might do Clint Sterner, A Football Existence. Remember that time that Jerry Jones drafted an Arkansas Razorback for no reason, and then he somehow wound up on the field? We're going to have that conversation. We could just talk about Jerry Jones and his affinity for his alma mater, and while that has at times really hurt the Cowboys. I think at one point, Reggie Herring was like their defensive coordinator. I think Houston Nutt was a quarterback's coach for them once. Why? Why would you ever make David Lee? I think David Lee was their quarterback's coach. He was the OC at Arkansas. They're like, yeah, let's hire that guy. Arkansas. Talk about all that stuff. If you guys have any suggestions, Eric says the Cowboys are a dark horse Super Bowl favorite right now. Dark horse. They're a very dark horse. They're the darkest of horses. Eric, hell yes, you're good for a Bronco fan. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Eric. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Facebook.com/WatchPhantom. Also, go to our YouTube channel. Do the same thing there. We're going to put up a lot of Dallas Cowboys content over the month of December. So make sure, if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, that you are sharing this with your other Dallas Cowboy fan brethren. And we'll make sure to get it out there for you as much as we possibly can. As always, I want to thank you guys for watching. And, of course, I want to congratulate Ari Temkin on his new baby boy. And, of course, his wife as well. She played a fairly important role. So I want to give a shout out to the Temkin family and everybody there. And I want to thank Ari for letting me come in and host the show for him. So, guys, as we get on throughout the year, I think it's going to get really interesting for Cowboys fans. And I think what they've shown is a pretty good blueprint for how to succeed in the postseason without having one of these star-studded, streaky offenses like the Rams or the Chiefs or the Steelers or the Bears have. All right, that's going to do it for me. I'm TJ Carpenter. You can follow me on Twitter at TJ Carpenter Show. I would recommend that if you have some sort of emotional issue, by all means, don't follow me on Twitter unless you hate yourself and others. If you hate everyone else around you, follow me on Twitter at TJ Carpenter Show. If you hate me, follow me on Twitter at TJ. If you like me, don't. You will not like me after following me on Twitter. I don't know why that is. I don't know why Twitter brings out the hate in everyone, but it definitely does. Certainly brings out the hate in my followers. So, looking forward to seeing you on Twitter. That's it for me. Later, y'all.